Alright guys, welcome to another edition of the Anything Wrestling Podcast. We are back here today with another episode. Once again, we got another triple threat going. We got the whole crew back together. It is the Shant with Dan the Man and the Commission.
Excuse me. I hate to interject, but ladies and gentlemen, I am the advocate of this podcast, and my name is the Commish.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to discuss the man, the myth, the legend,
And the creator of it all.
and
Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Damn it.
Wow.
like I said, we are here to discuss Vince McMahon or Mr. McMahon, however you want to look at it. So Dan, I believe you have a very quick introduction here to the man, the myth, the legend that is Vince McMahon. So if you want, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to start here. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, born August 24th. Happy birthday, Vince.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mr. McMahon.
1945.
Jesus.
American professional wrestling promoter, executive, American football executive,
The XFL.
businessman, film producer, actor, and sporadic professional wrestler.
Which, by the way, the XFL, for all you NFL fans who are tired of the rules changing, is coming back in 2020.
Very decorated man in and of himself. Two-time world champion, having won the WWF title and the ECW title. He holds singles victories over Ric Flair,
Woo!
The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and The Game, Triple H.
I wish we had like all their themes, but we
But,
can't afford them all, so bear with us.
Born in Pinehurst, North Carolina, currently residing in Greenwich, Connecticut. And net worth of $3.2 billion. Nice work.
So just like CM Punk said, he didn't think he could become a billionaire. Well, guess what? He proved you wrong.
I think one thing that, when I was researching Vince for this episode, I came to realize that he's actually had to overcome a lot of difficulties in his life. I know we were talking about this before we went on air. He had, some problems with, so I believe he's had a couple of stepfathers, so not just one. But one of them used to beat his mother, and he's gone on record of saying that guy is lucky that he passed away because I would have killed him myself and I would have enjoyed it. He's also had to overcome dyslexia, so it looks like Vince came from a really rough upbringing.
That's insane. Like, you would never think a man as rich and powerful as he is, like, had such a rough childhood or had to deal with stuff like that just because of, like, what he was a part of.
Yeah.
At growing up as a man and as, like, the man he is now.
And the ironic part is that he had promised his dad to never physically get involved, in the business, to never be a wrestler or a superstar. And he broke all those boundaries, He went in for it and gave us some memorable moments.
Well, it's what was best for business.
And he knows what's best for business.
Sorry, Papa Vince. You gotta do what you gotta do.
A sign of things to come. First of all, in all honesty, people say that if it wasn't for Mr. McMahon, we would not be enjoying the WWE product. Do you guys think that's true? That he's the guy who's responsible for us being the fans that we are?
For having this podcast?
I'd say so. Maybe not so as much as of late, because I feel like he'd been going for so long.
He's still going.
He'd been going for so long. You can only kind of keep your role going for so long, and then you start to see lower quality work.
Yes.
Roman Reigns. What? It had to be mentioned. The fans mentioned it to him a couple years ago.
While we're on this, what do you guys... so we're going to be kind of going out of order here, but what do you guys think the worst decision is that has ever been made in the WWE's history? Do you think it's a push that someone got or something that happened? The streak breaking!
I feel like that's Sean's answer.
I think that's Sean's answer, too.
Which streak am I talking about?
The Undertaker
Am I?
Yes.
Am I?
Edge's
Are you?
Am I?
SummerSlam streak.
He did have that streak, too.
Yes, it was the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania. What the hell were you thinking, Vince?
Why did you end the streak?
We're waiting for an answer, Vince.
Anyway, my answer is probably throwing away all of the good things that the Attitude Era introduced. Like the idea of having... We're seeing a little resurgence of it lately.
Yes.
But not as big.
Yeah, but my favorite thing about the Attitude Era was the fact that you didn't rely on one face. You had Steve Austin and The Rock, and when we crossed over, Kurt Angle, Triple H, The Undertaker, Kane, Jericho, Mankind. You had so many people that you could swap out at the top.
Yes.
And then for a long time, it seemed recently, like I said, it's felt like there were like 3 people.
John Cena.
John, Roman, Brock Lesnar.
That's it.
Randy, and that's about it. I mean, you saw occasionally like the Seth Rollinses.
AJ Styles.
AJ when he came in. Dean Ambrose was there for 2 minutes. But
Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan had like an entire career over the course of a year. And then they were like, all right, good. We gave you all you need.
Moving on to Roman.
Yep. But I like the fact that we're starting to see a little bit of a resurgence of this multi-face setup.
But keep in mind with that multi-face setup, if you weren't a face and you were a really damn good heel, like in the Attitude Era with The Rock, The Undertaker at one point, Kane, Austin, they sold. They brought all these fans to like, oh, I want to see these guys. I want to be there to see them in their prime, you know? And it sold. Whether you like the character or not, whether you wanted to cheer for them or root against them, you were there and you were watching it.
Yeah.
Even with bad decisions of like bringing back some of the legends to be like the commissioner, or my favorite thing that sometimes kind of ruined things was the celebrity
Raw GMs.
The bajillion of them. Some made good.
Summerfest.
Some good decisions, some bad.
So would you say that was your most
I
hated?
can't say that's my worst. I think the thing that I still question of what Vince did.
Here it comes.
And I'm not going to say Roman.
Oh.
Because that's current. I think we have to span overall throughout Vince's career with just him and like Hogan. He had something good with Hogan at one point, and then he's like, you know what? I don't need you anymore. Oh, but I'm going to bring you back years later. It's dead. And then I'm just going to toss you away because I don't need you anymore. What was that character? Mr. American?
Who was under that mask?
I still question it to this day, but apparently Vince knew. Vince knew the whole time, and he kept calling him out. But
It was me, Austin. It was me all along.
We're going to get back to this because Vince McMahon, if anything, has been able to put his ego aside and bring people back, put them in the Hall of Fame where they rightfully belong. But Vince McMahon was just this harmless announcer sitting off on the side who was, yes, the owner kind of behind closed doors, but that wouldn't really be mentioned. It was more just Vince, the commentator.
So what it would be that, okay, because I started watching in 96, but even when I would look back to like prior events before that in the early 90s, he was just seen, sometimes behind the scenes, but in the mid 90s, he was Vinnie Mac. He was the commentator at ringside always, or like the announcer,
The interviewer
who had interview whatever face was popular at the time, and he seemed harmless. But at the same time, you knew he was running the show.
Yes.
He wanted a bird, like an eagle's point of view of what was going on in the matches. He would call the matches with, whether it was his ridiculous feud with Jim Ross at the time, or him and Jerry Lawler, or even like when Raw was beginning in the early 90s with Randy Savage. You know, he would always want to be right there. And most wrestlers wouldn't take him serious because they thought, oh, Gorilla Monsoon ran everything.
The president.
Yeah, but really, it was Vince. Vince was right there.
What did you guys think of Vince McMahon, the commentator? Did you guys mind, or did you guys think of, please just stop, like, get off, take the headset off? I didn't mind. I thought it was great.
I mean, we know today that for the most part, I mean, not to suggest that the commentators that are currently on the roster aren't competent, but we know that he's in their ear feeding them stuff.
Yes.
So he's still kind of a commentator, just not out there. So he still knows what he's doing, and he still knows the game. So, I mean, they're sitting next to each other. No, I don't mind, because I think he, despite what we've heard is a certain level of immaturity on his part, the level of maturity, I still think he's got the business savvy for this, and he knows the angles to play. So,
like, even at one point, like, even into the late 90s, he started to get more involved with the wrestlers, because he thought at one point, like, you know what, like, this is my brainchild. Like, I can't let it fall apart. And right now we have something going very well with, like, you know, Austin, with Shawn Michaels, with Triple H. Just everybody there is starting to build something that was going to give them the push to be bigger than WCW, especially against Eric Bischoff and Monday Nitro. Like, Raw would be the show that you, at the time before SmackDown came along, like, okay, this is what I need to know. This is where everything's going to happen. Even though every now and then, thanks to my favorite advocate, Paul Heyman, would ruin it by letting you know, if you ever watch ECW pay-per-views, what's going to happen the following night on Raw. He would spill it out, or let Joey Styles do it. But you still had Vince try to have all control. You would still try to have Vince, like, just make sure nothing falls apart and have the show keep rolling.
So I never knew. So I know WCW would always spill the results, but ECW did that as well?
ECW at one point kind of had, like, forthcoming news of, like, either some of their wrestlers going to the WWE, or they had predilections of what the pay-per-view upcoming was going to have results of. Because sometimes some events were taped beforehand.
yeah.
And Paul Heyman, being the competitive man that he is, would let Joey Styles kind of like ruin it, or he would ruin it himself for the fans. But at the same time, it's like you had that animosity of like ECW and WCW trying to ruin Vince.
Yes.
And the WWE or WWF at the time.
And then the invasion happened.
But we kind of have to also let you guys know, we didn't really have Mr. McMahon just yet. He was slowly transitioning in 97 thanks to Bret Hart, Stone Cold. I think those two guys alone were bringing it out of him.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So I think what Vince does best out of anything is learn to evolve, to not just be stationary and stay as this one entity. And he's always, learned how to evolve, not just him, but all his characters, his company as a whole. So he went from just being a commentator, and then slowly he goes up into the ring, does an interview. And I think one of the first instances where we kind of got like the, what do you call it?
Like a retaliation?
Like at the point where, the character was slowly starting to become a thing, essentially, was that shove by Bret Hart, where he goes, you must be very disappointed. And Bret just shoves him.
WrestleMania 13.
Yes.
I remember that.
And Bret Hart,
I remember that vividly.
frustrated is not the goddamn word for it. This is BS. And, Vince just gets out of the ring. But a lot of people say that push is kind of what started that whole development of Mr. McMahon, which eventually, I know you want to talk about this, leads to the Montreal Screwjob, where officially this character is born. So
here's the thing. Like, that Raw in particular, I remember being like almost up till like way past 11 o'clock at night for it. And this is 97, so I think it was 13 at the time. No, 12. I don't remember. I'm very dated. But
Growing boy needs his sleep, damn it.
apparently I didn't sleep much.
hey, it
But,
was Attitude Era.
Like, you saw Bret's frustration, and I don't know if Vince had something to do with it, where like, hey, take it out on me, but it kind of felt like, no, this was not planned. But you see Bret like get in McMahon's face, spit at him, like tell him off, and you just see like Vince's anger come out, like, what the hell are you doing? You're ruining the moment right now. But at the same time, he's like, wait, okay, I'll give you your time. And then you would just see along after WrestleMania, like Raws and like pay-per-view events, like leading up to Survivor Series, like Bret would get in McMahon's face, he would literally start fighting him.
Yeah.
Just walk down, not even do his own cut of his own promo, just start trying to punch McMahon.
Yeah.
And like Vince would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I get it, but Jesus, calm down.
What about you, Dan? With this development or slow development of the McMahon character leading all the way into the Screwjob.
No, I think it was good. I mean, not for everybody involved, but that's what needed to happen. Is there needed to be a, like here, it's saying that sensing a public shift toward a more hardened, cynical fan base, McMahon redirected storylines toward a more adult-oriented model, and commenced all of this when he manipulated the title away from Bret Hart at Survivor Series in what is known as the Montreal Screwjob. This was when he needed to. He was I would dare say he was reasserting his dominance over his performers, because we knew that Bret didn't want to.
Bret never wanted to do anything.
Yeah, he didn't want
that
to
would
job.
make him look like he's jobbing it.
Yeah,
And that's what kind of annoyed Vince and also like everyone else around him, as far as like Shawn or The Undertaker. Like The Undertaker has gone on record to say it to Bret's face, like, why can't you just
do your job.
do your job?
And this is Undertaker.
Yeah,
Like,
and Undertaker never really calls anyone out because everyone always follows order.
yeah.
And you would see this with Bret and Vince, like, eventually escalate to something really big where it's like, I think in Vince's mind that night, he's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. No one's going to know except Shawn, Hunter,
the ref.
Earl.
and Earl Hebner of what we're going to do. But even then, Shawn felt uncomfortable. Hunter felt uncomfortable. Earl Hebner was like,
it's
you realize what's
He's
going
like,
to happen.
what do we do?
Well, it's because it was a shitty thing to do, but he felt like that was his only
was the only way.
option. Yeah.
So do you guys think, looking back now, that McMahon would have regrets about that? I mean, now Bret and McMahon are okay. So.
In McMahon's view of the Montreal Screwjob, it's kind of like easy to say, like, yeah, this had to happen in his way.
I think he would have preferred to not have to have done it the way that he did.
Like
but
if-
I don't know that he feels bad, or that I don't think that he regrets having done it, because I think it was what was, again, best for business.
I think if Bret cooperated in a way, like, fine, like, I won't let Shawn put me in the sharpshooter, but at least I'll take a sweet chin music
Yeah.
and just let him, get the pin victory. I think if Bret would have done it that way, Vince wouldn't look like the big asshole that he did at the time. But of course, Bret being Bret, Vince had to, like, no, like, I didn't screw Bret. The famous line, Bret screwed Bret.
A lot of superstars have said that even when Vince said that line of Bret screwed Bret, that he didn't even believe it. They knew that to Vince, the writing on the wall was Vince screwed Bret, but how can he stifle it for both the character and to just carry on with the company?
I feel like it's one of the whole thing was one of those, he didn't necessarily want to do it, but it was one of those, any publicity is good publicity, because the blow up from this within the wrestling community set everything in motion. That
Yes.
was kind of throwing nitro into the engine.
I forgot to ask you guys this. So Scott Hall in a shoot interview said, I think the whole thing was scripted and everyone was in the know, because why would Vince McMahon, especially back in 97, allow for someone to go WCW on a WWF TV program?
I remember that, and I remember
That
that
made
interview.
me think for a second. I'm like, that gets me a little bit, but how flabbergasted would every wrestling fan like you, Kamish, be that, so this was all scripted? Bret knew? Everyone knew? Everyone was in on it?
I've speculated that it's possible.
I've always thought, like, deep down, like, Bret, because honestly, look, Bret can sell anything. At that point, he made it seem like I had no idea what the hell. Yeah, I'm going to go in the back. I'm going to call Shawn out on it. I'm going to call everybody out on it. But what if, as he's doing this, he's making it seem like, you know what? Yeah. I'm making it seem like I had no idea this was going to happen to me. And you're buying into it very well. And the irony, too, the following night on Nitro, everyone in the NWO, including Bischoff and Hogan, are open-armed about Brett coming to WCW, even though we all knew that Brett was going to WCW with an open contract, with possibly the most millions he could have made at the time.
Would have been like CM Punk after he won the match against Cena, showing up at ROH.
God, I would have loved if that happened.
Because I mean,
He just took a vacation in Chicago at that point.
Yeah.
if you guys think about it, up until roughly about a year ago, TNA was like, if you said those 3 letters back to back,
People were always confused, thinking you were talking about something else.
Oh yeah.
Vince would probably be on your ass about that. Now they say like it's nothing, but you think about back in '97, someone literally saying and doing it with the
WCW.
finger,
It was
WCW.
taboo to mention the other companies because it was a plug. It was a plug for them.
And if you think about it, could WWE not like have even edited that out and just skip that part? But no,
No.
they kept it in.
It was live.
They kept it in. Even after when it was live and back in documentaries, it was right there, you know, in every single highlight package. But as we shift away from the Montreal Screwjob, let's get to the point where this McMahon character is in a marriage, essentially.
With Stone Cold.
With
Because
that-
at the same time as his feud with Brett was happening, there was a lot happening with Stone Cold. Stone
Yeah.
Cold had been injured. Owen almost ended his career with the pile driver that put him out. He took away his Intercontinental Championship, but then was giving him the push in '98 to become the champion. You know, represent the WWE as like the face of the company,
Yeah.
even though you are possibly the biggest thing I'm building. You had a lot going with them two as well, because I think was it '97 that
97.
the most botched Stone Cold Stunner of all time happened. But you would get like this thing building up, and even like you give Austin the title, you take it away from him.
Well, McMahon was being like the reasonable, like, you're injured, you need to stay at home. And Austin kept on, like, he was Bret Hart, but tuned way up. Like, I need to take time off. And then, you know, here we are at Madison Square Garden. You get, like, a double pop where he's like, you can kiss my ass. Stone
Little
Cold Stunner.
fingers, stunner.
And that's it. This McMahon-Austin feud just explodes.
Like that was like the last match in like the biggest pile of like wood and gasoline spread
Yes.
out, and then this was slowly transition Vinnie Mac to
Into Mr.
kinda
McMahon.
to slowly step away from the announcing table. Like, you know what? Screw it. If they want to screw with me, like hurt me, like try to kick my ass, I'm not gonna take it.
Well, I think there was kind of a passive stage with Vince because if you guys remember, they would do interviews like, do you want to see Stone Cold as the WWF champion? If Austin would be reasonable, you know, he's trying to be like so passive, but then eventually you start seeing his true colors like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
And you got the introduction of, you know, Gerald Briscoe, Pat Patterson, the Stooges.
Oh, God.
And then, you know,
It
you
was
know,
so great, but so bad.
So, you know, Mr. McMahon starts to be, it's like, you want to hate me? Okay, let's go. You know, turn the volume up and here we go. Attitude era.
Like
and it's
as
fun.
big as Austin was getting with his like face push, McMahon was
Heel.
rising up just as big a heel, and it's like you have these two that were in this type of wedlock where it's like, oh my god, this is working so well.
And perfect timing, mind you.
Mhm.
So, Dan, your opinion on all this? Moving away from Montreal Screwjob to Austin McMahon becoming the biggest thing that the company has ever seen.
Yeah, I think that became the quintessential feud for WWE. That drove them forward into everything else. If you hadn't had McMahon and Austin, honestly, I don't know if WWE would have come out victorious.
Because what was going on at the time? Like what? The NWO was still wreaking havoc in WCW, but yet Sting was destroying the NWO one by one with Hogan, Nash, Hall, Macho Man. Like,
You had all those names over in WCW, and yet all you had over in WWE was Stone Cold and McMahon.
Granted that underneath it, you did have at the time in '98
DX in the background.
DX,
You had a lot of things.
You
but
had
like that was
Kane
your
and Undertaker,
marquee
yeah.
for a long time,
and I think
and it was played so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why.
the instance of what we got to finally see, like Mr. McMahon come out, was when Austin lost the title, and it was a vacant title at one point. So you had what, Kane and Undertaker in a pay-per-view fighting for it, but yeah, Austin interfered, double counted them, claimed himself as the champion, and all of a sudden, at the top of the entrance in this glass thing, what does Vince do? All right, you're really gonna hate me for this, even though it's scripted. Austin, screw you, you're fired. And the next night, granted that, was it the next night or the following night where Vince was like kidnapped?
Yeah.
By
He's like, none of you will ever be greater than Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And then Austin comes in the
At that point, we're getting
No chance, that's what you got. Up against a machine too strong. Pretty politicians buying souls for us.
No chance in hell.
of us getting a copyright strike.
I think it was less than 30 seconds. I think we're okay.
Personally, let me take a quick survey here.
Hey, yo.
Favorite Austin McMahon moment? Go.
Oh man.
Of all time. I'm talking from...
I think when he kidnapped him.
that was your favorite
Like the
moment?
following 2 weeks or week after he had been fired, most of the whole episode of Raw was just like,
Where's Austin?
yeah, and oh my God, he just kidnapped Vince McMahon. Like, is he gonna kill him? And then to insult him, he brings him out to the ring, puts him through like hell. But before he can really like screw with him, here's a little envelope. You're gonna like what you see, quote unquote. And then everyone, and as a kid, I was sold on this, like, oh my God, he has a gun. Oh my God,
And
he's
JR
really gonna
was selling it. He's like, Steve, now take it easy now. And JR is selling this, like, to the fullest
Yeah,
extent.
and then all of a sudden, the Bang 316, all of that was.
Why
just
did we not get a
great.
t-shirt? How funny would that be? McMahon 316 says, I just pissed my pants.
I don't think Vince really wanted that.
I feel like that
sold.
would be a great, what do you call it for babies? What's that thing
A
called?
onesie.
Yes.
The Mr. McMahon onesie.
But that had to be, I think, one of my favorite Mr. McMahon moments, because you just see him the weeks before self-proclaim himself as like the biggest thing, almost godlike, and Austin brings him right back to being a mere mortal of a man that he is.
What about you, Dan? Favorite Austin McMahon?
No, I actually think I have to agree. I think that was the finest moment of the feud between the two of them.
I would have to go with Bedpan McMahon.
Oh, when he
That gets me all the
Wow.
time. Whole feud with Austin and McMahon, and then things kind of slowly, Austin goes to doing his thing. McMahon continues actually doing on-screen feuds with Triple H, The Rock,
The Undertaker.
The Undertaker. He starts evolving, and then I think the next milestone that we can hit is the purchasing of WCW.
Actually, well, that and also the fact that he's bringing in his family into it as
Yes.
well. Like, he was starting to really involve Stephanie.
The Black Wedding,
You also involved his son Shane into this as well. Like, because Shane had to be the biggest catalyst of that event coming up. And then, the whole like thing with him and his wife, with Linda, which, by the way, comes the worst Stone Cold Stunner.
which
Ever.
you can catch only on the WWE Network.
How much?
For a non-negotiable but reasonable price of only $9.99.
That's a good deal. But yeah, like you had all these things coming up, and it's just like, okay, like you're really putting yourself out there. Like, you're the man. You're this is who you are now. You're like the biggest asshole owner of the greatest wrestling company ever. And what are you gonna do as your next big move? I'm finally gonna take out the main competition that's been a thorn on my side for the last few years now.
But then think about this. He takes out the two biggest companies who are his competition, ECW and WCW. But not shortly afterwards, he has all those guys come to work for him. He brings Paul Heyman to do commentary. He brings Eric Bischoff to be a Raw general manager. All the superstars, well, not all of them really got the best push in the world, but nonetheless, they all came in. So, I think we kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, that Vince McMahon, he can be an understandable guy that, okay, you guys had to do what you had to do, but let's do our thing. Let's dance. And he's able to put the past aside and say, okay, let's do business.
Well,
So
that's the story a lot of times when you're dealing with reasonable people. That as long as you don't burn the bridge,
Jeff Jarrett.
you don't have too much to worry about if something goes awry. You go to do something that's more lucrative for you, as long as you don't set the house on fire. If something goes bad, then you can come back.
Yeah.
So like I jumped to WCW, I get more pay, but then Vince buys WCW, he's not gonna be like, hey, I know you went to WCW, go fuck yourself. So
Unless you're Hogan.
Unless you're Hogan.
Well, not too long after that, Vince brings back Hogan. First it was NWO, then it came to the red and yellow Hogan.
But even then, he still gave Hogan a chance. Like, you know what? You are the catalyst of the NWO. Be Hollywood. Be Hollywood Hogan. Go for it,
Wait, who are we talking about?
Hulk Hogan.
Oh, that's right.
America.
But wrong version of Hogan when he first came in.
But yeah, like you see all these things where like at that point, like, you know what? I have the competitors, they're mine now, it's all one thing, but I'm still gonna give them, their glory. I'm not gonna destroy all their wrestlers. I'll give Booker T a push, sure. I'll give
DDP a stalker gimmick.
yeah, I'll give Dean Malenko like the weirdest like gimmick ever of stalking Lita and ruining yourself as an original horse. Well, not an original Four Horsemen.
The man of 1,000 holds.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we did find a weird list.
And the Shockmaster's Garden buried.
Ah, the Shockmaster. It's a list of 1,004 holds.
Just out of curiosity, what was the very last to move on that list? I've never known.
1,004. Oh.
Was it a rear naked choke?
No.
No,
So it was something simple.
Ankle lock?
No.
Huh.
Oh, I got it. It was the arm bar,
Oh.
Oh yeah.
It's all coming back to me now.
which I kind of lost the list, but it's somewhere in my room, in my house. It's coming
It's
back.
okay. It's got its place in legend.
Thankfully, not in the Shockmaster's garden
The
anymore.
Hall of Fame candidate for 2019. The list.
I'll give the induction speech.
So then, as we shift from Attitude Era and the NWO coming back, Vince McMahon says we need ruthless aggression, damn it.
Which introduces John Cena in his tights, and his buzz cut.
Here's the thing.
The beginning of the end.
The prototype.
So here's the thing. Like, with John Cena, like, let's be real. When you first saw him go up against Kurt Angle, what did you guys think? Like, what did you think, like, Vince did with this kid that, like, okay, I need to see this kid in action. Is he really going to be my ticket to, like, the next Stone Cold Steve Austin or the next Undertaker or Shawn Michaels or Chris Jericho or whatever?
Well, I know Bruce Pritchard on his podcast was talking about this, where he's like, back then everyone was so busy that when these talents would go to have their tryout match, you would be lucky if someone gave you 2 or 3 minutes to like look at you through a TV screen and go, he's probably got something. Okay, bring him to the main roster. We'll see what we can do. But I think with Cena, like, you could tell there was something there with the slap to the face, and and he had a great match actually.
It was a solid match.
And
I like the match.
And the Undertaker backstage segment after that, where he extends his hand and shakes his hand. And I think that was like really symbolic, if anything. Like, if Undertaker is shaking your hand, the locker room, the ringleader, if he's shaking your hand, then
You've earned your respect, and usually,
and then squashed him in 2 minutes at WrestleMania 34, which you can catch on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable but reasonable price of only $9.99.
$9.99.
$9.99.
not $10.
Find
not
all your
$1,000.
favorite original WWE content except for the Stevie Richards episode of Raw
Like Story Time, Camp WWE.
or Swerved. Anyway,
Anyways, I think what it is just that, like, by having, the Undertaker, like, give him the go.
Like Maven.
Oh man, Maven.
that chair
What
shot to
would've
the
been?
head.
Jesus.
Rest in peace, Maven.
Like,
He's alive. He's alive.
he's alive and well. He's not dead.
People are probably going, what?
Go ahead, though.
The Undertaker doesn't give respect to anyone right off the bat.
Right off
like
the
that.
bat, yeah.
You have to really earn it with him or anyone in the back. And a lot of wrestlers have come and gone where they think they've earned the locker room respect, but they haven't. To have John Cena wrestle his ass off for almost 10 minutes against Kurt Angle, even though he lost, like, he proved, like, to be, like, you know what? Vince gave him all the trust in the world of, like, hey, you have one chance to really sell this. We're screwed if you can't do it. But to hear, like, just Cena say, like, introduce himself to Angle, and then he's like, Angle's like, oh, and what are you here for? It's like, what do you have to bring? And just hearing him say, like, the whole ruthless aggression and just smack the hell out of Angle, I'm like, okay, that was our new push into the new era.
I think that was the
Away
day
from
Kurt
the-
had to start using cue cards.
Oh man.
Go ahead.
But you still got so much in the ruthless aggression era. Like, some stuff you could hate, some stuff you're just like, do we really still need this?
I thought Ruthless Aggression era was great.
It is not as great, obviously, as our forefathering of the Attitude Era, but unfortunately, after the Ruthless Aggression era, as much as Vince tried to make this a good thing, most people weren't into it, but it still produced great matches, like
Yes.
we've discussed on a prior episode, the PG era.
Speaking of which, Vince, seeing that the world is shifting into something else and that, the world is changing, people are changing, the perspective is changing, Vince in 2008 does the one thing where a lot of people just still to this day, 10 years later, are still complaining about, turns the entire product PG. And we lose all the stuff that, as you said earlier, Dan, the Attitude Era has implemented.
Now that we're talking about 2008, I just want to take one last sidetrack real quick. Because when you asked where I think Vince made some missteps, this was a close second place.
The do-rag?
No. Do you guys remember the $1 Million Mania?
Oh,
Do you guys remember how the $1 Million Mania concluded?
Yes.
Do you remember that whole thing?
Yes.
I know.
Enlighten
it
our
lead-
listeners, please.
Now, it was poor. It wasn't poorly timed at the time.
Hey, was it?
Well, because of the way that it ended, and I'm sure you guys may remember what ended the faked death storyline. So we had in 2007, Vince put together the $1 Million Mania, where he was, I don't know if they were real fans or not, but he was letting people call in and try to win some money. And then they started to do this angle where weird things started to happen. And eventually the stage fell toward Vince and he escaped unscathed and he wanders out to his limousine walking past all
Wait a
the...
second, that wasn't the same night.
I'm just crushing it all
okay,
together.
okay.
So he wanders out to his limo, walks past a smiling Paul London,
He got fired.
gets in the limo, shuts the door, and then, not the worst jump cut ever, but it could have been better. The limo explodes,
Kaboom!
allegedly killing Vince McMahon. And I believe it's the next day?
Please.
Or is it like a week? Let's see. It looks like June 11th. So 2 weeks later,
Dan, remember the correct name here, please.
Stevie Richards, do I want to say allegedly?
Careful.
may or may not have committed some acts. And so then that brought the whole storyline to an end because they felt it was ill-placed.
It was an abrupt end, and honestly, with the situation in hand,
You can't
it
blame
really
Vince.
killed. No, you killed
At
the
all.
story, and it's like, damn, like Vince is really like back against the wall. Like, okay, I know I was going somewhere.
Especially
have
with
to
the
do
topic
something
at
now.
hand. We
Yeah.
were talking about death here, and this happens, and Vince is like, okay,
All right, we're done.
yeah.
Like he just immediately like, okay, I got to go back on camera. I have to save face.
Yes.
And it's not what he did at that moment. He said, you know what, fuck this storyline. Like we don't need it. I need to go on camera. I need to explain the situation at hand with Stevie Richards, and just we got to move forward.
Yes.
We have to we look bad. We have to move on, but also kind of acknowledge what just happened, but not make it where it's like, that's it. We're done as a company. We're done overall with everything.
I think that's what I love about Vince, is that idea of the show must go on.
Yeah.
Because if you guys also recall, when 9/11 happened, Steve Austin has gone on record of saying, I went to Vince and I said, Vince, should we do SmackDown, like 2 days later? I don't know. This doesn't seem right, with everything that's happened. And Vince is like, it's the first public assembly of its size. The show must go on. We need to get people back on their feet and to give them that form of entertainment like we only can.
And as much as moments that he really makes you cringe with some of his stories, and you're just like, oh
Incest
my god,
angle?
what are you doing? He at one point knows when something bad is happening, like, hey, I still have to be the owner.
Yeah.
I still have to be the man that's in charge of all these shows and all this production, and I have to put on a level of professionalism for not just the fans, but everyone in the world that watches this. And I think that's what's always made him like a great, owner as far as in regards to his own product. Like he knows what sells. He knows how to give the product to his fans in a way where it's like, yeah, there's shit going on in the world. We're not going to ignore it, but at the same time, we're not going to over publicize it.
We're not going to make it
We're
the
part of
forefront.
this.
Yes. So, Dan, before you brought this up, I know we were just going to talk very quickly about the PG era.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys personally think? Because, like I said, it's 10 years now, and it's kind of a blurred line if we're still in PG, if it's reality era, but, a lot of people have gone on record of saying the worst move by WWE to take the entire product, take away the blood, the gore, the nudity, all that, and make it a PG product. I used to be against this for a long time and said that it was the worst move, but now kind of looking back, I'm like, you don't need the blood and the gore, you don't need the nudity to make, great, regular TV programming. You look at Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, there was no swearing, there was no cursing, there was no excessive blood. It was just Shawn and Taker going out there and just putting on a story, You look at CM Punk, there was no excessive, use of, bad words or blood or gore or sexuality or anything like that. It was just CM Punk, going out there being a one-man show and putting on a performance. So I personally think that even if the product is PG, you can still put on, great regular, TV programming on a weekly basis. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think we've seen elements of it. I know that all the blood and the nudity had its place in the Attitude Era. That was at the core of it. It was a lot of shock value. I don't know that it's necessary nowadays. Specifically the nudity. I think we can just get past that.
Yeah.
I do think that that added element of realism from somebody getting busted open at select moments is good. I don't have a problem with it. Does it fit within your PG thing?
Well, again, we're in a blurred line.
Yeah.
Right now, are we still in this era? Are we in the reality era? And this is where I can make the distinction, I think, personally. Like, the last few years, it seems like the fans are more aware of like who they want to cheer for, what they want to root for, root against. Even though they do, you know, and this is why.
Found their voice.
Yeah, and this is the reason why I say it like this. I say that because if the fans are willing at one point after a WrestleMania to tell Vince McMahon as he comes out, Roman sucks, and Vince literally is just like, well, if that's how you feel, that means that we're past that point, because the fans are well in tune of like, okay, Vince wants to push this character. He wants to push this athlete, but the fans aren't buying it. The fans are now well averse to the universe. They're well aware of like what Vince wants to do, what the network wants to do, what stories are going on Raw and SmackDown. Now with Triple H having full control of NXT, even now and then with Live 205, like the fans are more aware, and Vince knows that, and he's okay with it, and he's letting, you know, like, yeah, granted, he's more behind the scenes for sure now, and he's giving like Michael Cole and Booker T or whoever
Corey Graves
is announcing either for Raw or either for SmackDown with like Otunga or I forget who SmackDown.
Tom Phillips, Corey
Byron
Graves,
Saxton.
and
Yeah,
Byron
like
Saxton.
he's feeding them what to say, but at the same time he's like, all right, you guys really need to push this story for me. You guys need to really like sell it. I can't do it anymore. I can't be out there all the time like I used to be in the Attitude Era, or even a little bit in the PG era.
Yeah.
Like, he knows it.
Now, I think that it's an unfortunate side effect a little bit, having raised a generation from the Attitude Era to the transparency of the reality era, or the,
Ruthless aggression.
yeah, to now. Because now you've got people like us, and that's why there's thousands of podcasts out there doing this, where we sit there and we talk about all of the nuances. The kids aren't doing this, but it's that generation that started from back then to now, who now kind of, they used to call us smarks. I think the term's fallen off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the smarks kind of have an idea of how things kind of work at this point.
It's like we're aware of what Vince is doing.
Yeah,
Pushing Roman.
you've gotten a peek into gorilla position, and so now you've got those people then sitting in the audience, and that's where this voice comes from. Is that we're like, dude, we know how this works. Just do what we want you to do a little bit.
So he's trying, and he's getting help from Triple H now, because obviously Triple H has been in the industry long enough to like, okay, I've learned from you, I've studied you, I can carry this along into the future. And that's where we wonder with Vince, like, how much longer is he going to be backstage? If at one point is he like, you know what, I can't do this tonight, I need to take off the headset, you guys are on your own.
You know, I think as of recent, the one way we can kind of talk about this is that the McMahon family has slowly started to assert their dominance backstage of just taking up all these roles. At first, it was the WWE was all a Vince McMahon product. Everything would go through Vince. However, now with NXT,
God damn it, Vince, bring the ice cream back.
with NXT, that's a completely Triple H thing. That's not a Vince McMahon thing.
Yeah, no, Triple H is like, that's his child. That's his product of WWE.
But now that has all the fans salivating at the fact that it turned everything over to Triple H because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I think there's a certain degree of youth in there that that plays into it, in the fact that Vince has been doing, like I said, Vince has been doing this a long time.
Yes.
And no offense to the fact that he's 73, but you get older, you aren't as sharp as you used to be.
I mean, the guy still thinks that potty humor is what the audience want to see. I mean, that whole
we've evolved.
The Bobby Lashley Three Sisters segment, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I'm okay without it.
But yeah, you have, like you said, you've got NXT, and people love it. And then you bring the stars up, and you hand over control to Vince, and then suddenly they're no
You either make
in
that
the toilet.
You either make that wrestler or you break them.
Now, the ultimate question that I wanted to ask and kind of sort of wrap up the episode about is, do you guys think that Vince McMahon is out of touch? And what would you say your favorite thing about Vince is?
You want to say this?
I can start. I would say, I don't know if I would go as far as to say he's out of touch. I would say his ear, he's becoming hard of hearing.
He's a senior citizen.
Because
He has AARP now.
Because I think he still has an idea of what to do, but I think sometimes the ideas get muffled on the way into his head. And then we get some of this convoluted stuff or these misfires. My favorite thing about Vince is his contributions to this and how long and how strong he went, and just his general savviness toward the business. He seems like a hard worker. I don't know his personality. Maybe he's a good guy. I hope so. But I admire Vince for everything he's brought to us as fans.
And your favorite thing about Vince?
His business acumen.
Okay.
Do I think he's out of touch? I think he's slowly starting to head down that hill. Yes. Yeah. Can he save himself? He can if he starts entrusting other people, especially Shane, because you've seen Shane back there as well, along with him. And Shane, he grew up in this business. He grew up as a referee, then of course as like the son of Mr. McMahon, who is there to like help run the company. And at the same time, like Shane has had an acumen of business himself when he went to UFC and then came back to the WWE. So he knows what sells. He as well knows like what to do as far as business goes. And I think at one point if Vince starts entrusting his family for sure, like with Stephanie and Shane, you'll still get a good product. It's just not to take away from CM Punk's, pipe bomb in 2012, but 2012 or 2011? Yeah.
2011, sorry.
Yeah. Like, even if you hand it off to his idiot son and idiot daughter, I think it'd still be in good hands.
Yeah, they're not stupid when it comes to this stuff.
Well,
favorite thing of Vince McMahon of mine is that he's always been someone that, to me, he's always delivered something good in this show. And I've always loved that about him because he's always found a way, when I've stirred away from wrestling, to always be brought back.
Yes.
And I love that.
Vince, is he out of touch? Kind of, sort of, semi, kind of there. Favorite thing about Vince, being able to forgive people, welcome them back, no matter how good or bad the given scenario is. You look at all these guys who maybe screwed him over or Vince screwed them over, and they find themselves back on the product or back in the Hall of Fame or on an exclusive network show, So I think a big lesson there is that, learn to forgive and forget, as we have said, the show must go on, no matter what good or bad time, that you're going through or your company's going through. And I think ultimately Vince is the reason why we continue to tune in each and every week and, watch this product. And, whether we bash it or we don't, that's subjective. But there's one man that's responsible for it, and his name is Vincent Kennedy McMahon, damn it. So there you go, guys. We just wrapped up our episode on Mr. McMahon, Vince McMahon, the man, the myth, the legend.